Millions of Gen X adults lived their entire lives without ever getting a tattoo. In today's world, tattoos are everywhere. People use them to express their feelings, memories, beliefs, and personal stories. But there was a time when tattoos were viewed very differently, and that is what makes the story of Gen X so interesting. Because when tattoos were slowly becoming more popular, many Gen X individuals chose a different path. They decided not to get one, and that decision was not simply because they disliked tattoos. The deeper question was how they viewed tattoos and what tattoos represented to them. Many Gen X individuals chose not to get tattoos because they did not feel the need to define their identity through an image or symbol on their skin. They believed that a person's real identity was not created by what was visible on the outside. It was created through life experiences, through challenges, through sacrifices, through the life they lived. Gen X was a generation that grew up during the 1970s, 1980s, and 1990s. During that time, tattoos did not carry the same meaning they carry today. Today, when someone gets a tattoo, many people see it as a form of self-expression. But during Gen X's younger years, a tattoo was often seen as a strong personal statement. It was something that could create an image of who you were in the eyes of others. And many Gen X people took that seriously. For them, a tattoo was not just a picture or a design. It was a permanent decision, something that would stay with you years later, through different stages of life. That is why many Gen X individuals thought carefully before getting one. They asked themselves whether something they liked in one moment would still represent them years later. Because Gen X grew up in a world where changing everything quickly was not always easy. Unlike today, where people can easily replace, remove, or change things, permanence had a much deeper meaning. When something was permanent, it truly meant permanent, and that mindset influenced the way many of them viewed tattoos. Many Gen X individuals chose not to get tattoos because they did not feel the need to define their identity through an image or a symbol on their skin. They believed a person's real identity was not created by what was visible on the outside. It was created through life experiences. If someone survived difficult times, that told a story. If someone made sacrifices for their family, that told a story. If someone worked hard to build a career, that told a story. Those experiences already carried meaning. They did not believe that meaning needed to be displayed through a tattoo. This mindset was not about being against tattoos. Many Gen X people respected tattoos, and they respected the choices of others. But when it came to themselves, they often felt differently. They believed, does my story need to be displayed? Or can my life itself tell that story? That was the difference. For many Gen X individuals, not getting a tattoo was a quiet personal choice. It showed that they believed their identity came from within. They were comfortable carrying their emotions, their memories, and their achievements. Privately, they did not believe that everything meaningful needed to be shown to the world. Some things were personal. Some memories were valuable because they belonged only to them. And maybe that is why many Gen X adults today still have strong personalities without ever having a tattoo. Their story is not written on their skin. Their story is written through the life they have lived. One of the biggest reasons many Gen X individuals never got a tattoo was because they were not a generation that easily followed every trend. They grew up in a time when popularity did not automatically mean something was right for everyone. If something became popular, they did not immediately feel the need to become part of it. They watched, they observed, they thought about it, and then they made their own decision. This mindset played a major role in how they viewed tattoos. As tattoo culture started becoming more common, many people around them began getting tattoos. Friends got tattoos. Musicians got tattoos. Celebrities started showing tattoos. And different styles became more accepted. But many Gen X individuals looked at this change differently. They did not ask, Is everyone doing this? Instead, they asked, is this something that truly represents me? For them, getting a tattoo, simply because it was popular, did not make sense. They believed personal choices should come from personal meaning, not from social pressure. This was a generation that often valued individuality in a different way. Today, individuality is often shown through what people display. But many Gen X adults believed individuality came from the choices you make. When nobody is watching, a tattoo could represent a memory, a belief, a life experience, or a part of someone's personality. But many Gen X people felt their personality was already visible through their actions. They did not need a permanent symbol to prove who they were. This way of thinking was connected to the world they grew up in, a world before social media, before people shared every detail with the entire world. There was a clearer line between personal life and public image. People kept some things private. They did not feel pressure to constantly explain themselves, and that influenced the way many of them viewed tattoos. A tattoo was a public statement, something people would notice before they even spoke to you, and some Gen X individuals preferred not to carry a symbol that invited attention or assumptions. They liked the idea that people would know them through conversation, through character, and through experience, not through appearance. For many of them, a tattoo created a message before they even spoke, and they preferred to let their personality create that message. This does not mean they were against change. Gen X adapted to new technology, new workplaces, and a rapidly changing world. But they did not accept every change simply because it was new. When it came to tattoos, many of them made a careful choice. They respected the people who chose tattoos, and they respected their own decision not to have one. Their choice was not about rejecting a trend, it was about refusing to let a trend decide who they should become. For many Gen X adults, the strongest form of individuality was the ability to say, I can appreciate something without needing to become part of it. And that mindset explains why many of them watched tattoo culture grow around them, yet still chose to remain without one. They were not missing a piece of their identity. They simply believed their identity was already complete. A tattoo could tell a story, but for many Gen X people, the story was already being told through the life they were living. Another major reason many Gen X individuals never got a tattoo was connected to their career, their workplace image, and their professional identity. Gen X entered adulthood during a time when appearance and professionalism were viewed very differently compared to today. In many workplaces, tattoos were not always accepted. A visible tattoo could create assumptions about a person before anyone even knew their skills, their personality, or their experience. And many Gen X adults were raised with the idea that first impressions mattered. They were taught that the way you presented yourself could influence how people viewed you. For some, this meant choosing not to get a tattoo because they did not want anything that could affect their professional image. It was not about shame. It was not about believing tattoos were wrong. It was simply about understanding the environment they were living in. Many Gen X individuals built their careers in traditional workplaces, where appearance standards were stricter. They worked hard to earn respect. They focused on their skills, their reliability, and their reputation. For them, a tattoo was not just a personal decision. It was something they had to consider in relation to their career goals. They often asked themselves whether a permanent design on their body could create unnecessary challenges in their professional journey. Because Gen X was known for a practical mindset, they were often the generation that believed, think about where you want to go before making a decision that can affect your future. This way of thinking influenced many areas of their lives, including tattoos. While some people saw tattoos as a way to express themselves, many Gen X individuals saw their career as another form of self-expression. Their dedication, their achievements, their work ethic, their ability to handle responsibilities, these things represented who they were. They felt that their professional identity already showed their values. They did not need an additional symbol to communicate their personality. Another important factor was family responsibility. Many Gen X adults reached a stage of life where they were focused on building stability. They were buying homes, raising children, supporting families, managing financial responsibilities. Their priorities were often centered around creating a secure future, and for many of them, getting a tattoo simply was not high on their list of important decisions. It was not that they could not afford it. It was that their attention was focused somewhere else. They were thinking about the next bill, the next responsibility, the next goal. Their energy was invested in protecting and supporting the people they cared about. For many Gen X individuals, life itself was already demanding enough. They did not feel a strong desire to add a permanent personal statement to their body. Their focus was on building something meaningful, outside themselves, a successful career, a strong family, a respected reputation. These were the things they wanted to leave behind. This is why many Gen X people viewed tattoos differently. They did not see a tattoo as something negative. They simply measured its importance against the other responsibilities they carried. And for many of them, the answer was clear. Their life achievements were already the biggest statement they could make. Their success was their symbol. Their character was their identity. Their actions were their story. And that is one of the deeper reasons why many Gen X individuals never got a tattoo. They were not trying to avoid expression. They were expressing themselves through the life they built. Another important reason many Gen X individuals never got a tattoo was their relationship with privacy. Gen X grew up in a world where personal life was truly personal, before social media, before people shared every moment of their lives online. Many experiences were kept within close circles. Memories were stored in photo albums. Important moments were shared with family and close friends. Personal struggles were often handled quietly, and this mindset also influenced how many Gen X people viewed tattoos. A tattoo is a very visible form of self-expression. It allows a person to carry a story on their body for everyone to see. For many people, that is meaningful. But for some Gen X individuals, certain stories were not meant to be displayed. They believed some memories were valuable because they were private. A person could lose someone they loved. A person could overcome a difficult chapter of life. A person could experience a major transformation, but they did not always feel the need to turn those moments into a permanent mark on their skin. For them, the meaning of an experience came from living through it, not from showing it. This mindset was connected to the way Gen X handled emotions. They were often described as a generation that learned independence early. Many grew up becoming comfortable with solving problems on their own. They learned to adapt. They learned to move forward. And because of that, some did not feel the need for external reminders of their struggles or achievements. A tattoo can be a powerful reminder. It can represent strength, survival, love, or personal growth. But many Gen X individuals carried those reminders internally. They did not need to look at their skin to remember what they had survived. Their memories already lived with them. Their experiences already shaped them. Their journey was already part of who they were. Another reason was confidence. Many Gen X people developed a sense of self that did not depend heavily on outside approval. They did not need others to recognize their story, for it to have value. They did not need a visible symbol to prove that they were unique. Their confidence came from what they had experienced and what they had achieved. This created a different relationship with identity. For some younger generations, tattoos became a way to say, "This is who I am." But many Gen X individuals believed, "I know who I am, even if nobody else can see it." That difference is important. It shows that not getting a tattoo was not an empty choice. It was a choice based on their understanding of identity. They believed a person's worth was not measured by appearance. A person's value was found in their character, in their loyalty, in their responsibilities, in the way they treated people, in the promises they kept. For many Gen X adults, the strongest statement was not a tattoo. The strongest statement was the life they created. They carried their stories differently. They carried them through their actions. They carried them through their relationships. They carried them through the lessons they learned. And that is why many Gen X people never felt the need to put those stories on their skin. Not because they had nothing to say, but because they believed their life was already speaking for them. When we look at the lives of Gen X individuals who never got a tattoo, the most interesting thing is not what they avoided. It is what their decision reveals about them. They lived in a time when tattoos slowly moved from being unusual to becoming accepted by society. They watched friends, co-workers, and younger generations embrace tattoos as a form of identity, and many of them respected that choice. But they also stayed true to their own decision. They understood that self-expression does not look the same for everyone. For some people, a tattoo represents love, memories, or important life moments. But for many Gen X individuals, their stories were carried differently. Their stories were written through hard work, through challenges they overcame, through families they supported, and through the experiences that shaped their character. They did not need a permanent mark on their skin to prove their life had meaning, because for them, meaning came from what they lived, not what they displayed. They believed identity was not created by one image or one decision. It was created through thousands of small moments, the way they handled problems, the way they treated others, and the way they kept moving forward when life became difficult. Many Gen X individuals were not against tattoos. They were not against change. They simply believed their identity did not need to be displayed for the world to see. Sometimes, the strongest identity is the one that does not need to be announced. Their decision to never get a tattoo was not about missing something. It was about understanding themselves, because they knew their life was already a story worth telling. In the end, the psychology of Gen X people who never got a tattoo is about a generation that believed actions were louder than appearances, a generation that carried memories without always displaying them, because sometimes the most meaningful stories are not written on the skin. They are written in the way a person lives.